Okay, so you're ready to ditch the endless scrolling and dive straight into some good old TV, right?
Yeah,
The 80s and 90s, specifically US shows.
sounds good.
You've given us some pretty awesome stuff to work with, too.
Yeah.
A real mix, you know,
Mm-hmm.
nostalgic lookbacks, some popularity rankings, and even some really personal memories.
Awesome.
So our mission today is to pull out all the best bits, the really memorable stuff. See why these shows stuck with so many of us, and do it all without getting bogged down.
I like it.
So no fluff.
Straight to the good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've given us Yada BV's thoughts on all the creativity in the nostalgia wave, right?
Right.
The Board Panda Cruise picks for the best of the 80s.
Yeah, they're top picks, right?
Exactly. And then Joanne's blog post, favorite TV shows growing up in the 80s and early 90s.
Love it.
It's like a blend of, popular opinion, personal experiences, and that big nostalgia factor.
Yeah. Perfect mix for what we're doing.
Perfect for a deep dive.
Absolutely. All right, so let's start with that nostalgia thing, right? It's everywhere. Yadav BV is like seriously championing these shows, calling them far better than what we have now.
Mm.
And he talks about this, scrappiness born out of necessity. And
Yeah.
it really gets you thinking.
It does.
Like maybe having fewer options actually made things more creative?
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about that, right?
Yeah.
Like back then, you only had a handful of channels and nothing on demand, so those shows had to be good.
They had to be good.
Yeah, to really grab people's attention week after week.
Yeah, yeah.
So the writers and producers, they had to be resourceful. They had to focus on those stories and characters that would really connect with a huge audience.
Right, right.
So while today we're kind of drowning in content, right, with streaming and all that,
We are, yeah, it's overwhelming.
maybe those limits back then, having fewer choices, actually pushed them to make something really memorable,
Yeah, yeah.
something that brought people together.
Totally. And, Joanne's blog really highlights that whole appointment television thing. Like she talks about planning Friday nights around TGF.
Oh, yeah.
That was huge for so many of us.
It was a ritual.
Totally. You knew exactly when your shows were on, and that anticipation was part of the fun.
Definitely. The Board Panda list touches on the cultural side of things, too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They call the 80s a time of materialism and consumerism.
Right.
And they say that looking at the entertainment from back then, especially the TV shows, can help us understand, the whole mindset of the time.
Interesting.
They talk about those sitcoms with an edge,
Mm.
the detective shows that were starting to pop up, and all those action-packed adventure series.
Right. It's true. When you think about it, our connection to these shows is kind of complex.
It is, yeah.
There's that initial experience of watching them as kids or teenagers,
Uh-huh.
right? And how we felt about them then.
Yeah.
And then there's how we look back on them now.
Right through those nostalgia goggles.
Exactly, with our tastes having changed and all that.
Exactly. So when we talk about shows being better or the best, it's really subjective.
Super subjective.
Yeah. What we're really trying to figure out is why these specific shows grabbed us in the first place.
Yeah, why they resonated, right?
Exactly. All right, so let's look at some examples.
Okay, let's get specific.
So the first one Yada BB brings up is Small Wonder.
Small Wonder.
It's this quirky little sitcom about a family with a robot they're trying to pass off as their daughter.
Yeah.
The whole premise is almost like a commentary on the whole perfect American family ideal,
Right.
but with this robotic twist thrown in.
Yeah, I love how he describes all the characters.
He goes into detail.
Like Tiffany Brissett as VICI being compared to a replicant from Blade Runner.
Right.
That immediately tells you everything you need to know about her delivery.
Yeah, super robotic.
Exactly. And then there's the rest of the family, the smart aleck kid, Jamie, the workaholic dad, the stereotypical housewife who he admits to having a little schoolboy crush on,
He does. Yeah, it's funny.
and even his comment about the token black character. It just paints a picture of this simple but endearing world that the show created.
It does. And the fact that you can still find episodes on YouTube, even if the quality isn't great, shows that there's still some interest out there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so
Yeah.
next he jumps to something completely different.
Yeah, way darker.
Tales from the Crypt.
Exactly. That horror anthology with all the dark humor and twist endings.
Oh, man, that show.
It was something else.
What I found interesting was his comparison to From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, he said Tales from the Crypt was a lot more darker.
That's saying something.
It is. And of course, you can't talk about Tales from the Crypt without mentioning the Crypt Keeper.
Oh my God, the Crypt Keeper.
John Cassier's voice work was perfect.
It was iconic.
It really was. And to think he also voiced Scrooge McDuck.
I know, it's crazy, right?
It's wild.
But that mix of creepy and funny, it was just brilliant.
That deliciously dark humor. was their trademark.
Totally. Okay, now let's fast forward to the 90s
Right.
with Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Ah, yes. This one just screams after-school TV.
Totally. The whole idea of kids going into a digital world to fight monsters, it's so 90s.
It is, and calling it an off-brand version of the Power Rangers is spot on.
Oh, yeah, it totally captures that whole 90s thing with technology and virtual worlds and superheroes.
And the details he points out are great, like the super low-budget transformations of their vehicles into this mega robot.
Oh, yeah, and those dark tinted motorcycle helmets that were supposed to be high-tech.
It's hilarious looking back.
It's those little things that make it so nostalgic.
They do, and his character descriptions are perfect. The boy next door superhero, the Weasley villain with Tim Curry's amazing voice.
Oh, yeah, Tim Curry's voice work was epic.
The geeky best friend like Betty from Archie, and the awkward goofball who's like Turtle from Entourage.
He basically created a mental yearbook for the show.
He did, and even with the corny dialogue and some of the cringeworthy moments, there was a charm to it.
There was a real earnestness.
And that jingle,
Oh, God, that jingle's so catchy.
total earworm.
Okay, what's next?
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps, the TV adaptation of those super popular books.
Yeah, he calls it a pretty good tribute, considering they probably didn't have a huge budget.
Right, and that intro sequence he describes with the shadowy figure who's supposed to be R.L. Stein spreading this creepy aura over the city, it was really effective.
It set the mood perfectly.
And I like how he compares Stein's writing to a mix of Saki and Lovecraft, but toned down for kids.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe the tone of those stories.
Ugh.
Always supernatural, always suspenseful.
He admits that the special effects weren't always great.
Yeah, but he says the stories and the music were strong enough to make up for it.
Right. It shows that good storytelling can overcome a lot.
It can.
Okay, the last show Yadav BV talks about is Xena Warrior Princess. He makes a
Wow.
bold statement saying she's way cooler than Wonder Woman.
He does.
And he sees the show as one of the first real portrayals of a powerful female superhero.
It's interesting how Xena actually started as a 3-episode arc on Hercules.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the audience loved her so much that they gave her her own show.
Wow.
It just shows how great Lucy Lawless was in the role.
Yeah. And how much the character resonated with people.
They had this mix of Greek mythology, a Bulgarian and Thracian setting. Although Lawless did clarify that it was ancient Greece around 1876 BCE.
Okay.
Those arrogant Greek gods, Xena's iconic weapon, the chakram, which he points out might actually be from India.
Interesting.
And they filmed it in New Zealand.
Like Lord of the Rings.
Years later. Exactly. It all adds up to this really unique show.
Okay, so let's switch gears and look at the Bored Panda list.
All right, their ranked list gives us a good idea of the most popular 80 shows.
Yeah, and sitcoms were huge.
They dominated.
Cheers, The Golden Girls, Family Ties, Night Court, they all left their mark.
They did, and each one had something special. Cheers was the ultimate hangout sitcom filmed in front of a live audience, so you felt that sense of community.
Right.
The Golden Girls broke ground with its portrayal of older women, and Joanne mentions that she still loves it today.
Yeah.
Family Ties was interesting because it had conservative kids and ex-hippie parents, which was a different dynamic.
Yeah, totally. And Night Court was just so quirky and absurd.
In that late-night legal setting,
Yeah.
they were all unique in their own way.
And the action-adventure shows were massive, too.
Oh, yeah, the A-Team, MacGyver, Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard.
Full of stunts and those larger-than-life heroes.
Definitely the shows everyone would be talking about the next day.
Absolutely. And we can't forget the detective shows.
Right, Magnum, P.I., and Moonlighting.
They had this different kind of excitement.
Yeah, it's all about the charisma of the leads and the mysteries they were solving.
Yeah. So many different genres to enjoy.
Even on network TV.
Okay, so now let's move on to Joanne's blog post.
Okay. She brings in that personal touch.
Yeah, it's so relatable. She talks about TGIF nights and specifically watching Growing Pains because of Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
And wanting an Edna Garrett from The Facts of Life in her own life.
I love that.
It really brings those shows to life through her memories.
It does, and her specific recollections are great, like remembering the mail from Mr. Belvedere.
Yeah.
That feeling she has now when she thinks about The Cosby Show.
It's complicated.
It is admiring the cool apartment in My Two Dads relating to DJs in Full House and, of course, Urkel and Family Matters.
A true cultural phenomenon.
These aren't just show titles to her, they're moments in time.
Yeah, moments connected to her life.
Exactly.
And who could forget those teenage crushes on the Saved by the Bell and Doogie Howser MD casts.
Oh, yeah. Everyone had those.
And the fashion and living dolls.
So much to remember.
Right, and she still loves the Golden Girls, which echoes what we saw on board Panda.
Yeah.
And that dream of owning a car like Kit from Knight Rider.
Classic.
It's all those little details that make these shows stick with us.
They do, and the comments on her blog are amazing, too.
Oh, yeah. What did people say?
It's a goldmine of shared nostalgia, people chiming in with their favorites. Dukes of Hazzard, Dallas, Perfect Strangers, Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
And so many people talking about how important TGIF was to their week.
It was a communal experience, for sure.
It was.
Okay, so looking at all these sources, some patterns emerge.
Yeah, what do you see?
Well, first of all, the sheer number of sitcoms and family-oriented shows in the 80s and early 90s is striking.
It is. The networks really knew what people wanted.
Yeah, they seem to understand that people connected with those relatable characters and those explorations of family dynamics.
Yeah, even in less traditional families, like in My Two Dads or Kate and Allie.
Right, and we also see the start of those strong female leads like Xena, who really broke the mold.
Definitely ahead of her time.
And there was that willingness to experiment with different genres.
Yeah, like Tales from the Crypt.
Exactly, mixing horror and dark comedy.
And Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, trying to blend live action with those early digital concepts.
Right, for all its low-budget charm, it was trying something new.
Which brings us to the special effects.
Right.
Yadav BV makes a good point about how those effects from back then can still be useful for artists today.
Really?
Yeah, they show how to be creative with limited resources.
That's cool.
Yeah, and while some of those effects might look dated now because technology has advanced so much, they were innovative for their time.
Yeah.
And for shows like Tales from the Crypt, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, and Goosebumps, those effects are something you either love or hate.
Yeah, Yada BV even uses the term acquired taste
He does.
because of the cheesy effects and the over-the-top acting.
And the comments on Joanne's blog show that people's tastes have changed.
Yeah.
Some shows just don't hold up as well now.
Right, and the fact that Board Panda has people ranking these shows,
Yeah.
it shows that some are definitely more popular and have stood the test of time better than others.
But even with changing tastes, these shows had a huge impact.
It did.
Joanne's blog and all the comments prove that people still have strong emotional connections to these shows.
Yeah.
They're tied to memories of childhood and those important years.
They were more than just shows. They were part of the culture.
Absolutely.
So we have this incredible mix of creativity, different genres and styles, characters that felt like friends, and this powerful wave of nostalgia. Whether these shows were better than what we have now is up for debate.
It is a matter of opinion.
But by understanding why they connected with people back then,
Yeah, and why some are still so popular.
it gives us a glimpse into that era.
And its influence on us.
Okay, so here's something to think about.
Right.
Out of all these shows, which one do you think best captures the essence of the 80s and 90s in American television?
That's a good one.
And why do you think some shows have lasted while others have faded away?
Yeah. Why do we still watch some and not others?
It might be time to revisit some of these shows with a fresh perspective.
With what we've talked about today in mind.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun.
See you next time.
See ya.